you. We're all very excited to hear our main presenter for tonight, Integriti One Saiful One Jan from Malaysia think tank London. Let's give a round of applause for him.
Thank you very much. I'm recovering from a slight fever, so please excuse me. I hope I have my lozenge here, I have some water there. I just hope I don't lose my voice. The guidelines for dialogue says participants may speak in either Bahasa Malaysia or English. So I'm going to start a little bit with Arabic. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillahillazi arsala rasulahu bil huda wa dinil haqq liyuzhirahu 'ala dini kullihi wa kafa billahi shahida. اللهم افتح علينا حكمتك وانشر علينا من خزائن رحمتك يا ارحم الراحمين. وقال رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي امري واحلل عقدة من لساني. I want to thank Trisha for helping us, for really organizing this event. This is the first ever seminar that we are doing. We as Malaysia think tank is doing in Malaysia, and I'm very happy to see that the room is quite full. Trisha was telling me that we were expecting about 40 people at the beginning. I was saying I'll be happy with about 25, and suddenly we have got quite a big number. Thank you very much to everyone for coming. Thank you very much for the panelists as well for joining us tonight. Let me just tell you a little bit about Malaysia think tank London. We are a relatively young, classical, liberal think tank. Our focus is on policy issues, and we try to use classical liberal values to produce policy proposals. Based in London, we started our operations last year. My colleague Abdul is our director. He was in Washington, but is now based in KL. He's here among us tonight. I lead the senior management team, and we are supported by an international advisory board. We are now looking into the possibility of opening a KL office, and we are planning a series of events, hopefully beginning from February next year in Malaysia. This is quite rare for me. I actually prepared a text because I was very worried if I lose my points tonight. So please bear with me as I go through the points. The topic tonight is not an easy one. I know the publicity of this event explicitly links me with PAS, but I'm not speaking on behalf of PAS tonight. I present myself in this forum. Now, the topic is Islam a blessing to Malaysians? Let us start with a scenario. Having lived in the country for many years, a group of ethnic minority wants to contribute to make the country stronger and more prosperous. They decided to speak up. They decided to contribute proactively in the ongoing debates on policy matters, on issues that they feel matters to them. They try to present the views of their ethnic group to policymakers. Among the things they asked for was for the majority community to treat them as equals and to allow them to practice their religion freely. Now, how did the majority community respond? They responded by saying that the ethnic minority group may have hostile agenda. They responded by saying that the ethnic minority group is ungrateful and trying to divide the country. They responded by saying that the ethnic minority group does not respect the majority community. They say that the ethnic minority group is trying to change the socio-demography of the country. They say that the ethnic minority group does not respect the feelings of the majority. One politician, or maybe even a few politicians, even say that the ethnic minority group is a minority population and should not try to punch above their weight in changing the country's culture or policy. Now, where do you think that took place? Sounds very familiar. To me, as someone living in England, the scenario was a real scenario, and it actually happened in Britain, where the ethnic minority were Muslims, and the majority was white British. Not surprisingly, it could also be read as a Malaysian problem, wherein the minority group was the Christians, the Hindus, the Buddhists, or whatever you like, and the majority was the Malay Muslims in Malaysia. Now, as a Malaysian Muslim living in Britain, I feel that it is not easy being as a Malaysian Muslim living in Britain, I feel that it is not easy being an ethnic minority, especially when the majority feels that you are threatening them. Speaking in London on 15th November 2007, Professor Tariq Ramadan called for Muslims in Britain to engage in what he calls as a post-integration discourse, He believed that Muslims should be confident enough to speak up and demand to be heard, and he was addressing a British audience. He said that Britain is home for many Muslims. Their parents may have come from other countries, but for the younger generation, Britain is home for them. And that is why the minority Muslim communities in Britain are being urged to speak up, because Britain is their home. And speaking up is not an option. It is an obligation for them to work as hard as they can to make the country better. I believe that the same arguments can be applied to non-Muslims in Malaysia. In the UK, the Muslim minority is demanding that they are treated as equals, that they are allowed to practice and to preach their religion, that they be allowed to pray and fast while at work or in school, that they be allowed to wear what they want, wherever they want and whenever they want to wear it, that they be allowed to build more places of worship in the areas where they live in, and so on and so forth. Looking at Malaysia from abroad, and I have been living in England for about 14, 15 years now. Last time I came back was, 3 years ago. I got lost trying to find my own home the other day. Looking at Malaysia from abroad, I see non-Muslim, non-Malays in Malaysia also asking to be treated as equals. I see some of the more religious non-Muslims asking to be allowed to practice and preach their religion, that they be allowed to build or retain holy sites, churches, temples, perform, quail, and so on. In short, non-Muslims in Malaysia seem to be asking for exactly the same rights as Muslims in the West are fighting for. In the West, Muslims are trying to be equals with the majority non-Muslims. In Malaysia, non-Muslims want to be treated as equals as the majority Muslims. In the West, some local non-Muslims are saying, don't challenge us. This is our country. That's what the majority non-Muslims are saying. What do you get in Malaysia? In Malaysia, you get some Malay Muslims, not all, some Malay Muslims saying, don't challenge us, this is our country. It is not easy being minority, is it? Because everyone is looking at it, especially in the majority community. It saddens me when I see and hear about how the majority tries to silence the minority. Only this time it is the reverse of the situation in the United Kingdom. Over there, the majority is the non-Muslim. Over here, the majority is Muslims. That is, of course, a very big oversimplification. I propose that there are actually 2 layers of the problem. And these 2 layers have been mixed into one, making the composite problem even bigger. The first layer is essentially the differences between ethnic groups. Since the early stages of the life of our nation, there have been rather visible differences between the socio-economic status of the different ethnic communities. They may live in one country called Malaysia, but they are oblivious to the other. They live together, but in many cases they are actually apart. Things like demands for the protection of Ketuanan Melayu, or recent calls for special privileges for the Indians, only make this problem worse. So if we dissect the problem, we will see that the first scale is differences between ethnic groups who are grappling with the challenges of becoming a Bangsa Malaysia. Then the second layer is the differences between religious groups. There are obvious differences between one religion and another. Once again, we find cases where people of different religions find it difficult, and some even refuse to mix and to intermingle with one another. Ethnicity and religiosity are supposed to be different issues. You cannot necessarily tell one's religion based on one's ethnic group. Maybe, in Malaysia we're so familiar with someone looking like that, he must be a Hindu. Someone looking like that must be a Malay Muslim. But if you go there, it's almost impossible to say that. And you cannot necessarily tell one's religion based on one's ethnic group. One ethnic group is not necessarily adherence to one particular religion. The Prophet Muhammad and Abu Jahl were both Arabs, but one was a Muslim and the other was obviously not. Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Salman al-Farisi were not from the same ethnic group, but both were Muslims. So in that sense, I would say that Malays are not necessarily Muslims. Chinese are not necessarily Buddhists or Christians. Indians are not necessarily Hindus. Ethnicity and religion are 2 separate things.